Welcome back, everybody. I'm so glad that you could join us on yet another beautiful day here in the world. Last week we talked about Saints Peter and Paul, and this week we're going to talk about Saint Kateri Tekakwitha. She is a beautiful saint who teaches us about the importance of living the gospel.
Yeah, so Saint Kateri was born in 1656 in what is now the state of New York. When she was 4, she and her whole family got smallpox. Unfortunately, they all died except for Kateri, who was left alive with a lot of scars all over her body, and her eyes got really bad. When she was 11, these 3 Jesuit missionaries moved to her community, and she started to watch them. And she wasn't so much converted through their preaching, which she was in part, but a big part of her conversion was through their lived example and how they just lived good lives. When she was baptized, she took the name Kateri in reference to Saint Catherine of Siena. The 2 saints, Kateri and Catherine of Siena, actually lived fairly similar lives. They were both young women who lived lives of devotion, who lived lives of fasting and sacrifice. They both went out of their way to find opportunities to forfeit comfort and to give up the easy way so that they could grow closer to Christ and they could suffer like Christ did. She spent a lot of her life teaching children about prayer and also tending to the sick, to the elderly. She later went on to be known as the Lily of the Mohawks because of her gentle and kind spirit and also her great faith and her devotion to prayer. She's actually really reminds us of Saint Joseph. We talked about him before and how a symbol of Saint Joseph are white lilies. And they lived similar lives too, because they were both saints who didn't necessarily do much. You know, we don't know anything Saint Joseph said. He never said a single word in the entire Bible. But they both lived simple and faithful lives. And then later on, at the age of 23, Saint Kateri passed away from an unknown illness. And it is said that all of the scars on her body actually healed themselves shortly after her death. So that's a little bit about the life of Saint Kateri. But I'm wondering, Heather, why is it that this woman is such a great saint, especially for us today?
That's a good question. There's 3 things that kind of come to mind when I think about what you just told us about Saint Kateri. First of all, Saint Kateri lived in a time when wars were happening all over the place, diseases were rampant, and yet despite any of the turmoil or any of the trouble, her faith was absolutely unwavering. She knew and she believed in the very gospel that she herself observed as a child. And that actually leads to the second point too, I think, because what she watched is what then she wanted. She had observed these missionaries and it was appealing to her, so she lived a life that was simple and straightforward and humble, as we mentioned in comparison to St. Joseph. She didn't go out and travel all over the globe. She didn't stand up in crowds of thousands. She just lived the life that she knew she was supposed to live, and that's the life of the gospel, the life that Jesus teaches us that we are also called to live every single day. Love your neighbor, care for somebody, pray for somebody, offering a sacrifice so someone can have something perhaps that they need and you can do without. Those very simple acts every day are important for all of us to do. We don't have to talk to thousands of people to be able to do that. And Saint Kateri understood that. And the third thing that comes to mind is that in her ability to live the gospel, now certainly that she is a saint, her work actually continues. We can ask for her intercession and ask for her help. She can lead us to Christ. And in fact, the really cool thing is that as recent as 2006, she is credited as having cured a boy who had a very dangerous and life-threatening skin disease. And that miracle was announced and verified through our past Pope, Pope Benedict XVI. So Kateri seems like a really simple and beautiful woman, and yet look at what she's done, what she's accomplished throughout her life. She's lived through challenges and she's overcome them, and through all of it, she believed in God. And that's a beautiful model for us.
Thanks for watching. If you want to see more, feel free to like and subscribe. We post every Friday, hopefully. And next week we're going to be talking about Mary Magdalene.
That's right.
And we'll just leave you with this quote. We don't really know who said it exactly, but it's a quote that just really perfectly fits this week's video, which is, always preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words.
God bless.
See you next week.